Hello guys, and we're back for another lesson on TypeScript. So in this lesson, we'll be looking at variable declarations. And before we can get started with that, I think we should understand what these variables are. So a variable is a named space in the memory that stores values. So to put that into context, so let's say a variable is like a box where you can store your things in. So you can store your shoes in a box. You can store your clothes in a box. You can store your plates in a box if you're moving and things like that. So when it comes to programming, the values are your box is the memory of your computer. So in other words, the variable acts as a container for values in your program. And these variables in TypeScript, which is the same in JavaScript, is has rules that they abide by. So, like one, your variables cannot start with a number when you're naming them. You cannot say my variable is, and then the first thing or the name that you try to give to your variable be like a 1 or a 0 or things like that. Variables can contain alphabets and numeric digits as long as those digits are not at the beginning of the name of your variable. And the variable name cannot contain spaces or special characters. But there are two special characters that can be used in your variable name, which are the underscore and the dollar sign. So to see this at play, let's create a new file. So we're going to create a new file now, call it variables.ts. And then so there are two ways to declare your variables in TypeScript, which is when you declare a constant variable, or when you declare a variable that's going to change. So you declare those variables in different ways. So we'll start off with our constant variables. So to declare a constant variable in TypeScript, there's a special identifier called const, which stands for constant. And then now we'll need a name for our variable. So what are we going to call our variable? So let's call it program. And then when you declare constant variables, you have to give it a value. So you're saying, like I said, the definition of a variable is a named space in memory that stores values. And we'll get to variables that change in a moment. So maybe I should start off with that, because I think it'll be much easier to understand the const after we've done the so the other one. So let me start off with that. So let me go. So to declare a variable that changes, we use the keyword let. So we're saying let and then the name of a variable. So our variable, we want it to be what? Program. No, program. And then you can leave it at that. So you have declared your first variable, and that variable name is program. And let's go back to the rules of our variable names. So we said our variable name cannot start with a number. So let's look at that. So if I change this guy here and put a 1 in the beginning, we see red. So if I hover onto that, it says an identifier or keyword cannot immediately follow a numeric literal, which means your variable name cannot start with a number. If I remove that number, and then the rate is gone, so is my p. So you put back the p. So when you declare your variables, sometimes you want to store values. Most of the time you want to store values in them because you want to use them in your program all the time. If you're not using it, it shouldn't be there. So now that we've declared our variable, that means we can start doing things with our variable, like assigning it a value. So now we declared our variable name program. Now we can give it a value. So if I go program equals to, and I go Typescript. So now we saw the console log in the previous video. So now if we go console.log, and in the previous video we did not use variables, we just used the value in our program. So here we can actually log this guy here and put him there. And then now, so let's run our program. So if I go tsc variables, and then we run node variables, and then enter. So you see to the screen we see Typescript. So now let me explain the difference between these two. So what this is here, it's saying declare a variable of the name program. And what this is saying is give the program variable the value Typescript. And then, so we can actually do these two in one line. We don't have to separate them. So you can do your variable declaration and your variable assignment in one line. So I can actually go, let me just cut this out, remove that, and remove that, and do that. So by doing that there, I am declaring it on the left hand side and assigning it onto the right hand side. So if we run, so we compile our Typescript program again, and then we run it, same result. So, and that's how you declare and assign a value to your variable. So one other things that we can look at, so special characters in our variable names. So if I start with the comma, says cannot find name. If I put a comma at the end, variable declaration expected. So things go wrong. If I put a space there, something else. So, but there's a special, not that, sorry, the dollar sign. The dollar sign does not complain here, but it complains there. It only complains here because it does not find the name. So, but if we change this to that there, it should stop complaining. And another special character that's allowed is an underscore. So if we go underscore there, it does not complain up there, but it complains down there. But if you change it there, it stops complaining. And so now, let's see, compile our program, run it, same result. So, and now we can actually have a number at the end of that. You can call it program 1, call it program 1. It works. You just cannot have the number in the beginning. You can have your name, variable name can start with the dollar sign, can start with the underscore, can start with alphanumerics. So now let's go on to the const from earlier. So since we saw some magic with let, let's look at the const. So with the const, if I go const program, let's see. Let's try to declare our variable. We see red. Const declarations must be initialized. What is wrong here? So the problem with this is because we are declaring a constant variable. And by declaring a constant variable, we're saying it should have this value and this value can never change. But we are not actually giving it a value with this line. So it won't work. So what we need to do for this is to assign the value there and go program. Now it works. Because we have actually given it a name after we have declared it. One other thing that we can try to do is do this. Try to change the value of your constant thing. Let's just call it blah. Cannot assign to program because it is a constant. So if you plan on using something in your code that you don't want to change, you would, when declaring that the variable for that particular value, you'd give it the const. You would declare it with the const. But if you plan on it changing, you will use the let, because that's what will allow you to do that. Now, actually, before let's just try to compile this broken code here. So now, if we go tsc variable.ts, try to compile, let's see, boom, it bombs. So you can see it here. It says cannot assign to program because it is a constant, which is the same thing you would see if you just hover on the red in your code. Yeah, I hope that explains variables and variable declarations. And in the next lecture, we will look at the types for these different variables that we create. And hope you liked it. If you need further explanations, just comment down in the video, and I'll make sure to respond to all your questions. Thank you.